The Department of Commerce's fiscal year 25 budget request totals $11.4 billion, which is $654 million, or a 6% increase over the fiscal year 24 enacted level. Doesn't the current policy encourage that locality to flout illegal immigration laws to inflate its own census numbers?
I do not agree with that. The Constitution is crystal clear where we require companies to identify, is this AI-generated content or is it real content? And they'll do that by some process of watermarking.
It makes me a little excited you just said that.
Is there any agency in the federal government that keeps track of non-citizens?
You have stumped me, Congresswoman.
Do you think the number of illegal aliens that were counted in the 2020 census had an impact on the apportionment of the House of Representatives that we have today?
I don't think so.
The Department of Commerce's fiscal year 25 budget request totals $11.4 billion, which is $654 million, or a 6% increase over the fiscal year 24 enacted level. Between each decennial census, the U.S. population grows and changes. Therefore, effective and efficient government requires high quality and objective sources of information. How does the Census Bureau determine what questions will be included in the decennial census?
Thank you for the question. And we are gearing up for 2030, which is closer than you might think. I'm so proud to say that we have unbelievably high-quality data scientists, statisticians, economists at the census, and they are constantly in the process of using the best data science and statistics techniques to figure out how do you ask these questions to get the best information. Fundamentally, the census should have nothing to do with politics. It should just be about getting the data so we have the best objective picture possible of all the people who are in America and every information that we can gather about them and their needs.
Doesn't the current policy encourage that locality to flout illegal immigration laws to inflate its own census numbers? Would the Secretary like to comment?
Yeah, and respectfully, sir, I do not agree with that. The Constitution is crystal clear. Our job is to count all persons without regard to their immigration status. And as he said before, I'm very proud of the professionals who work at the census. And honestly, my job is not to inject my political views or the president's political views or anyone's political views into the way they do their job. Their job is to be nonpartisan, collect the best data possible, and count every person.
Well, speaking of AI, what specific investments are you proposing?
So in AI, we are asking for funds for the AI Safety Institute, which is to create standards for AI. Everybody, including myself, is worried about synthetic content. So we want companies to watermark what's AI generated. Well, what's adequate watermarking? What's adequate red teaming? So we're going to build a team, the AI Safety Institute, to develop standards so that Americans can know, be safe. We're also investing in scientists, and we're investing in policy people at NTIA to help us develop policies for AI. I'll just say, in this respect, I'm very much looking forward to working with the Congress. We're doing what we can do, but at the end of the day, Congress needs to legislate as it relates to AI.
And folks in South and West Texas talk about their potential ability to the communication providers in these areas talk about their potential ability to participate in the agency's BEAD initiative, the lack of it due to the large size of the areas, and that some states will require applicants to serve, as well as the challenges delivering services at a very low mandated rate to certain consumers. What has the agency done about these concerns? Basically, large areas that you're trying to come.
Yeah.
It's very
So-
different from an urban area.
Once again, this is something, you guys are hitting all the topics that keep me up at night. My job in implementing this $42 billion is to make sure every American has access. Everyone. We've never had a task like this before, including rural. We are massively focused on rural. That's what the subsidy's for. So we're working very closely with your governor and with the governor's team, using our maps to figure out who's not covered and providing subsidies to companies so that they, in fact, cover everyone, including in rural areas. What I can tell you, I do feel confident, based on everything I know, that we will get every community, even the most rural. We're going to have to be agnostic. You know, it may be fiber. We have fiber preference, but it may not be. That may not be affordable. And we're going to make sure that everybody has access that's affordable at the end of our implementation. The way it works is every state has to submit a plan.
Sure.
Texas is different than Pennsylvania, different than Kentucky. And before we're giving any money to your state, we have to be satisfied
Right.
that everybody will have access.
You know, you and I have had the conversation in the past about critical minerals, batteries, et cetera, so forth. But what will be the process with ITA of looking at what we should add to this portfolio?
So one of the other budget requests, and I can't remember the precise number, but we're also asking for additional money for our supply chain management office. I think it's about $12 million that we're asking for in ITA. I will tell you, all members of the committee, when I started as secretary, we were using Excel spreadsheets and getting on the phone with companies to do supply chain tracking. And now we're building a team. We've built a team. I'd be happy to model the product we've built for anybody here. It's a bespoke IT system where we can track and monitor our most critical supply chain vulnerabilities. We need to keep building that. We need to be much more proactive instead of proactive, predicting where are we going to have a supply chain problem? Where is China poised to take advantage of us? So that's the direction we're moving into instead of just being reactive, we're out of baby formula on the shelves, react.
$250 million is a huge amount. Would you consider that an adverse economic impact? And would you consider that as compromising the competitiveness of the U.S. industry abroad?
Thank you for the question. I will say this. National security has to come before commerce. It's one of the hardest parts of my job. I tell semiconductor companies that they can't sell their chips to China. It denies them revenue. But first and foremost, it's national security. I want to say I hear you, and I appreciate your concerns, but the reality is this is a very narrowly targeted change to tighten up our license requirements. It's based upon good data we have around diversion. Guns go one place but wind up in the hands of criminals or drug traffickers or terrorists. And we're denying or making it very hard to sell guns to 36 countries that have unrest, huge drug cartels. It is not in America's national security interests to export guns that wind up in the hands of criminals that could destabilize those countries or, quite frankly, our own country. I will tell you, every one of those people that had their license revoked can reapply, but it's going to be under stricter scrutiny in light of the evidence we have around diversion.
Well, ma'am, I mean, these are vetted countries. Obviously, these licenses were approved in the past, okay? I mean, this is going to cost the United States firearms industry a tremendous amount of money.
Could you just talk a little bit about what you anticipate or what you envision NIST doing to be able to identify that?
Yeah, thank you for your legislation. It's it is really scary and unbelievable to see some of these deep fakes. I'm sure you guys have seen them. So what we're going to do in the budget request for NIST is a couple things. One, develop the science to be able to identify what is authentic versus what is AI generated. But two, I think we need to get to a place where and we'll need Congress's help to do this, where we require companies to identify, is this AI-generated content or is it real content? And they'll do that by some process of watermarking. And what we're going to have to do at NIST is figure out what's adequate watermarking.
And secondly, what are we talking about here is balance between enforcement and helping the economy. What we have here is a Boeing paradox. Boeing has to sell planes to China, but what happens if we're in a situation that's more aggressive with China? Can you talk about how you balance our national security with economic need?
Okay.
Get all that?
Okay, I'll do my best. First of all, I'm familiar with your tech hub. Doesn't mean it'll get funded, but I'm familiar with it. I think it's excellent.
It makes me a little excited. You just said that, but go ahead.
And the governor has called me numerous times.
I know.
So I got it, the memo. Secondly, we do need people. Some of it is just human beings to do enforcement, right? With the conversation we just had, we're trying to cover the world here. So yes, we work with the FBI. Yes, we work with the intelligence community. Yeah, we have several new efforts with the DOJ. The fellow Matt Axelrod, who runs enforcement, comes from the DOJ. But we do need more manpower.
Which generally allows federal contractors to take ownership of patents on inventions created with federal funding. As you know, the federal government has the power to march in and grant compulsory licenses to third parties in some circumstances. On December 8th of last year, NIST issued a draft framework to provide guidance to federal agencies on what to assess when considering whether to exercise marching authority, and explicitly included price as a factor for the first time since the act was passed in 1980 with strong bipartisan support. The authors of Bayh-Dole have stated that the law makes no reference to a reasonable price that should be dictated by the government, and that this omission was intentional. Aren't you concerned that the administration's proposal to consider price as a factor for exercising march-in rights will send us back to a time when government-funded research just sat on the shelf, not benefiting anyone?
Yeah, so let me say this. We stand strongly on the side of IP protection, and the document to which you're referring is non-binding. It is a, interagency memo for guidance, which is just that. All of this is a balancing test. The president has rightly focused extremely on bringing down the cost of pharmaceuticals and bringing down the cost of medicine and drugs successfully. But I don't want to give you any impression. We stand strongly on the side of IP protection.
Thank you.
Is there any agency in the federal government that keeps track of non-citizens?
You have stumped me, Congresswoman.
I assume,
I think,
like the U.S.?
yeah, I mean, not certainly in my remit, no.
How do we go faster? These barriers to speed are real. And how can the contracting officers value speed as much as they value other things, maybe such as DEI or some of these labor policy requirements being enforced? If you can comment on that.
Yeah, great, thank you. First, real quick on reciprocal trade, one of the things that we did recently was through BIS was around connected vehicles. You can't drive your Tesla to the airport in Beijing. You can't. You can't drive an American-made connected vehicle around certain areas in China. So what's fair is fair. So what we're saying is we are concerned about Chinese connected vehicles on the roads in the United States, not for, tariff and such, but economic disparities, but data. Think of all the data.
Yeah, like electric buses being driven around Plant 42 that are made by a Chinese company would be a problem, which is what we have in our district right now.
Collecting data
Collecting data, yep.
on the driver, what they say, where they go, their driving patterns. So just a second to let you know, I am trying to move out on some of these
Great.
reciprocity ideas that we've been discussing to protect Americans.
Great, thank you.
Look, on chips, here's what I'll say, and I'll try and do it in 30 seconds. I think we are on path. That's the bottom line. You say we're approaching the 2-year anniversary. I have 6 months before the 2-year anniversary, so that's a lot of wood to chop between now and then.
Yes.
We have put out, I started with nothing. I now have 200 people, amazingly talented people, would welcome you to come meet them anytime. We have put out, I think, $29 billion. We've been on a roll recently, okay? I know people were frustrated until the beginning of this year. In the last 3 months, we have done, I think, 7 or 8 big deals, putting out nearly $30 billion, all to the leading edge providers.
What will the Space Commerce Unit at Department of Commerce do to count these satellites?
Yeah. There are so many, as you have said. So we are developing a space situational awareness and traffic coordination program. I think of it as like air traffic control for space. And we received $65 million last year to develop this. We're requesting another $75 million in this budget to continue that. It's on track. It is on track. We have an excellent person running the Office of Space Commerce, and that's our primary focus right now, is developing this tracking system so we can have an awareness of where all of this space satellite activity is.
Very quickly, the $4 million for global markets, the ITA request for that. Which markets does ITA see as strategic for this purpose? And how will it be addressed?
Africa. I was just in Kenya. Extremely important. China's all over Africa. We have to show up. And certain areas of Southeast Asia.
Madam Secretary, do you think the number of illegal aliens that were counted in the 2020 census had an impact on the apportionment of the House of Representatives that we have today?
I don't think so. But I
don't think so.
But I don't have a great answer for you.
Okay. Can you get me a great answer?
What do you think?
I think it did. I think it really did. At a significant, I mean, if we're looking at over 20 million illegals in this country, then I think that it had a significant impact.
Yeah, my job, though, isn't...
Well, let me...
Go ahead.
You mentioned that the census is counting the whole number of persons in each state. I agree with you. It's what the 14th Amendment says. But it also says in Section 2 of the 14th Amendment, when it talks about representatives in Congress, it says the basis of representation therein shall be reduced in the portion which the number of such male citizens shall bear to the whole number of male citizens 21 years of age in such state. Now, I know the 19th Amendment added both male and female, made it both male and female, and the 26th Amendment lowered the age to 18. But the 14th Amendment still says male citizens is the basis of, says citizenship is the basis of representation. And I'm grateful to take a clarifying action this week to prevent the marginalizing of citizens' voting power by finally requiring a citizenship question on the decennial census, and by modifying the House of Representatives apportionment to be based only on United States citizens. I look forward to voting for H.R. 7109, the Equal Representation Act, of which I am a proud original co-sponsor. Now, can you tell me a little bit about the Census Bureau's annual business survey? What is the cost of that annual business survey, and why did it go from 5-year in 2017 to 1 year?
I could probably get you the cost, but I'll have to get back to you on the exact cost.
Okay, that's fine.
I do want to say something to your last question. The census's job is to identify persons living in this country. And I know from experience, I lived it, when you start to ask people about their immigration status, they then don't answer the door and won't be counted, and it will lead to inaccurate data.
Ma'am, I appreciate that, but moving on to the Census Bureau's annual business survey.
Is there a value in building, should the United States consider a significant national link between major cities that will allow us to use quantum networking?
I'm afraid I would have to research that. A quantum expert, I am not. So we could follow up
Okay.
on that. It is an area, look, I'll say a couple things. It's definitely frontier technology, which is why we are export controlling seriously. It's on the outbound investment screening list. We have asked in the budget for $68 million, which is an increase of $14 million at NIST to hire 41 people to develop new standards and create research partnerships for quantum. So we're really leaning in at NIST with universities to push forward on the research. Whether or not
Okay.
what you say is
I'd love
the
to
right
follow up
idea,
and
we
see
can
if there's
follow
some
up.
value
But
in-
what I can tell you is, although I don't know, the people at NIST will have an opinion, and so we should make that happen.
Okay, good.
The subcommittee stands adjourned.